I deal with people who haven't even got to the point where they're worrying about whether other people are manipulating them or trying to influence other people. They're working on their own self-sabotaging behaviors. Okay. So it's about understanding your own, bringing from non-conscious to conscious the things that you do that are barriers to your success in life and work. And it's connected to what you said, Nick, about, do we compete or do we collaborate? Didn't we cooperate to compete? Didn't we collaborate with large numbers of other humans so that we could become the most successful animal on the planet?
Yeah, absolutely.
And my final question, going back to your swarm video. So considering that the Nobel Science Prize recently was for the GPS system in the brain, so based on swarm, shoal and flock behavior, do you believe in a human collective consciousness?
In a sense, yes. First of all, I think that the reason that we all know we're conscious is because we all know that each other is conscious. And we know that because we talk about it. And we read novels. And, let Martian scientists come to Earth, and suppose they aren't conscious, but they're very good scientists. I don't know if that's possible, but imagine if you can.
We'll see if Blaise can build us one later. But yes.
One of the things that they would have no trouble discovering was all the lore about human consciousness, because the movies are full of it, the books are full of it, people talk about it, and so the phenomena are there to study. If there's something that is interior and completely outside of science, I don't know what it is. I think we've got the tools to study every nook and cranny of human consciousness, whether we want to or whether we want to sort of leave people alone and let them stay private. There's a good reason to keep your counsel and not reveal everything.
Well, I can't come back very quickly, just briefly. I can't resist. Even I remember there's what we call the zombie paradox, which is this thing of somebody who appears to be conscious. I mean, I sometimes think this at work. Who acts as if they were. All the evidence is, but in fact, there's nothing going on inside. How could a Martian, or indeed a neuroscientist equipped with your philosophical breakthroughs, fundamentally resolve that question, or is it not? Is it another one of these illusory ones?
Yeah, I think that's a cognitive illusion or an intellectual illusion of the first order, and I'm amazed that so many people are taken in by it, and that philosophers take it seriously.
We're coming to you, Blaise, but you're nodding. So do you think it's so? What kind of a mistake is it to think that that's an interesting question?
It's the same mistake that you would be making if somebody said, well, I can imagine a cat which is up and about and can reproduce and eats and has a sort of metabolism, but it's not alive. Well, how do you know it's not alive? I don't know, God told me or something. No, that's just not possible. The act of conceiving of something is harder than that. You can't just sort of cock your head and think, oh yeah, I can conceive of that. That doesn't count for anything. And philosophers, it really doesn't. Philosophers who say, oh, I can conceive of a philosophical zombie, no, they can't. They just can't. They can do something, but whatever it is they do is not worth building a theory around.
Okay, I'm almost tempted to ask Nick whether that's a fair characterization of those who think they've thought of one. Dan says that they haven't.
I think that's a fair characterization of where the debate is.
Okay, that's a nice philosophical result. I do want to check, Tara, this thing of bringing things to consciousness. So Dan's thought, I think, in part is that it's useful not to be aware of everything that's going on inside your head, that it would be entirely unfeasible, in fact, to get by in the world if you were. You're trying to bring more and more into people's minds. I mean, isn't it useful not to be aware of stuff?
I mean, it would be impossible to be aware of everything, but it's a little bit like your desktop analogy. So, are you running on iOS or Android? Make a choice, bring the right things to the forefront, and then work on that basis, I would say.
And is that right, Dan, that we can do more optimization? So what Tara would be claiming is that the things which have ended up we're being aware of and not by evolution and how it's come to be are not quite optimal, we can tinker with it. Is that something you'd be sympathetic to?
Oh, yeah, very, very much so. I think that it's indeed very possible for people to, as it were, think themselves into bad corners and to find themselves beset with ideas and attitudes and fears and so forth that are not just counterproductive, they're false, they're in a bad way. And anybody who can talk them out of it or help them out of that is doing that person a great deal of good. And when they're doing this, they're not doing it by magic. They're doing it by summoning up representations in the brains that are influential and changing things. And you don't know, nobody knows or has to know yet where in the brain exactly it is or how exactly the neurons are doing the representing, but we can have a good idea of what the job of those transient representations are, what they can be, what they can do.
Now, Dan, you're a frequent visitor to London, and these are ideas that you've explored repeatedly over the years. But I do think that in 2017 in London, we're in a different place than we would have been 5 years ago, in one particular respect, and that's the extraordinary progress, at least as described by proponents of deep learning, machine learning, the artificial intelligence project. Some of the big problems have been cracked, so chess was a blind alley because you could just search all the moves, but Go, you can't search all the moves, so it has to be something
First of
more
all, you're
intelligent.
wrong about chess. You can't search all
Enough
of
of them to make a difference, and Go was solved. So, you know, firstly, well, not firstly, but the question, you know, from you to Blaise and the machine learning, do you think we're making real strides in the machine learning approach, in this artificial intelligence approach, towards the kinds of things that you think are really interesting?
Absolutely, I do. And the last chapter of my book is about the rise of deep learning and other techniques, the new techniques which have led to a sort of rebirth of AI in the last decade. Jeff Hinton and others have really had some tremendous breakthroughs. What interests me, many things interest me about it. One of them that interests me, and I wonder if Blaise would agree, is that all of these methods are in a certain sense Darwinian. They all involve bottom-up, massive amounts of sifting and trial and error to extract pattern from huge databases, in the same way that natural selection has gleaned design information from several billion years and millions of species in order to create the designs that we have here. So I view deep learning as a continuation of sort of Darwinian, quasi-Darwinian processes now in silico, and it's tremendously successful, just as Francis Crick said, evolution is cleverer than you are.